I've been going to the gym for 6 years consistently. But for the first 4 years of those 6 years, my body pretty much looked the exact same. I plateaued for 4 years straight. Now, that's partially because of the injuries that I had sustained in the past, which prevented me from applying the fitness fundamentals that I'm going to divulge in this video. But it's also in part because I didn't know the fitness fundamentals that I'm going to divulge in this video. I've spent the past 2 years trying to figure out why I couldn't make gains, no matter how consistent I was in the gym. And through those 2 years, I have learned a lot. And I'm going to compress that 2 years worth of research, trial and error, into this one video, where you will learn everything you need to know about fitness fundamentals. That said, the first fitness fundamental that you need to know about is exercise selection. Exercise selection matters. Now, granted, it's better to go in the gym and do a quote-unquote bad exercise than it is to not do anything at all. There's no such thing as a useless exercise. There are better exercises and worse exercises, but there's no such thing as a useless one. But if you want to make gains, it behooves you to pick the best exercises. And that is something that I've already done for you, so you don't even need to worry about that. Exercise selection is already taken into account in all of the workout plans that I have created for you. So don't even worry about that. I've already picked out the best, most effective, most efficient exercises for you. But aside from exercise selection, even if you pick the best exercises, you're still not really going to see gains if you don't have the volume dialed in. And that is the next fitness fundamental. Now, there are a few things that you need to understand about volume. The first of which being that you need to subject each muscle group, every single muscle group that you plan on growing, to 10 to 20 hard sets per week. So that's 10 to 20 hard sets per muscle group per week. So for example, you want to grow your chest, you need to do 10 to 20 sets, hard sets of chest every week. You want to grow your back, 10 to 20 hard sets of back exercises per week. You need to get enough volume. You need to get enough volume because if you don't get enough volume, you're not going to give your body a reason to grow. Your body needs sufficient stimulus to induce hypertrophy. In other words, you need to work out very hard in order to get very muscular. 10 to 20 sets has been proven to be the optimal point where you are getting enough volume without overtraining. So you're essentially lessening your risk of injury while also increasing your chance of making gains. Not even increasing your chance, because this isn't about likelihood or luck. This is literally about input, output. If you're getting enough volume, you are going to grow. Now, within those sets, how many reps should you be doing? In those 10 to 20 hard sets per muscle group per week, you should be doing 6 to 15 reps per set. Why is that? Because 6 to 15 reps is the optimal range for hypertrophy. So what does this really mean? What this really means is that you need to increase the intensity, which I will talk about here in a second. You need to increase the intensity such that you are failing your set somewhere between 6 and 15 reps. So if you're doing, let's say for example, bicep curls, strict bicep curls, and you're doing sets of 25, you need to increase the intensity in one way or another. But before I talk about intensity, there's one more component of volume that you need to understand, and that is how many times you hit a muscle group per week. Now, to be fair, even if you do all of those sets in one day, you will still make gains. If you do all of your back exercises in one day, so you get 10 to 15 sets of back exercises in one day, and then the next day you only do chest, 10 to 15, 10 to 20 sets of chest in one day, you'll still make gains doing that. But you will make more gains if you do 2 chest days, 2 back days, 2 arm days. If you hit a muscle group twice throughout the week, you are much more likely to see better gains. Why is that? Well, the answer is simple. Because as you progress through your workout, the quality of your sets decrease drastically because you're fatigued. If you are conducting each set with the proper amount of intensity, by about your 6th or 7th set of doing an exercise, you are going to see a drastic decrease in your overall strength level. In other words, you won't be able to push yourself as hard. And everything beyond that point becomes what we call junk volume, meaning that you're still going to stimulate your muscle, but you won't be able to stimulate it as effectively. So let's say, for example, with bicep curls. If you do, let's say, 20 sets of biceps in one day, okay, so 20 sets of biceps, which is, by the way, insane to do in one day. After about your 10th to 15th set, you're basically cooked. At that point, all you're going to be able to do is curl maybe the 10-pound dumbbells. And you're not going to grow from that. You're not going to grow from curling 10-pound dumbbells. Whereas if you were to simply split that up into 2 days, so instead of doing 20 sets in one day, you do 10 sets on 2 separate days, those 10 sets on each day will be much more intense. You're not going to be curling 10-pound dumbbells anymore. You're going to be curling closer to your 6 to 15 rep maximum for the whole entire workout. So that's really the only reason why you grow much more efficiently when you distribute your sets across multiple days of the week. So you want to make sure that you are hitting each muscle group twice a week if possible, which once again has already been taken care of for you with the workouts that I've created for you. So don't even worry about that. What you do need to worry about, however, is intensity, which is the next fitness fundamental. You see, you can pick the right exercises, or you can pick the best exercises. You can do them with enough volume for 6 to 15 reps and still not really see any gains because the intensity isn't high enough. You may be wondering, what is intensity in this context? Intensity is synonymous with difficulty. So in other words, you need to make sure that the exercises that you're doing are difficult enough to where you cannot do more than 6 to 15 reps. Period. Now, there are a few different ways you can do this. The first way, especially if you're doing more of a calisthenics or body weight routine, is you can change the leverages. So you can alter the leverages by moving your body and or your hands into different positions to make the workout more difficult. Let's say, for example, you do chin-ups currently. You can switch to pull-ups, and you might find that to be a more difficult variation that you can do fewer reps of. So that would be the next progression for you. You would progress into a different variation. Maybe you do push-ups and you switch to diamond push-ups. That would be a harder variation of the same exercise where the only thing that has changed is your body and or hand positioning. So that is one way to increase the intensity. But in my opinion, it's a pretty inefficient way to increase the intensity. A more efficient way of increasing intensity is increasing the time under tension. What does this mean? Basically, do the movements in a slow and controlled manner. So when you're doing a bicep curl, instead of doing them fast like this, you go slow and controlled. And when you do this, you don't need a whole lot of extra weight. As a matter of fact, you're still not going to get gains from 10-pound dumbbells unless you're a complete beginner, but you can get something out of much lighter weight by going slow and controlled. And an added benefit to this is that your risk of injury decreases substantially when you do this because you're not handling heavier weights. You can't handle heavier weights and increase the time under tension by default. Because in order for you to be able to control the weight in the way that you need to take advantage of this principle, you have to lift a weight that is somewhat light to you. That said, that is not my preferred method of increasing the intensity. My preferred method of increasing the intensity is simply increasing the absolute weight. What does that mean? It means exactly what it sounds like. You're doing bench press and you're able to knock out 18 to 20 reps, you put more weight on the bar. It's that simple. Because here's the thing. When you focus on time under tension, while it is effective, it's an effective strategy for making the workouts harder and increasing your gains, it's too easy to cheat. You can cheat time under tension. Maybe mentally you're already disengaged from the workout that you're doing and you want to get out of the gym as quickly as possible. And so you do those reps just a little bit faster than usual. And because of that, you see marginally less gains. And although it may not make that big of a difference, it adds up over time. Those little gains that you're missing become big gains as the years go on and as the workouts go on. When it comes to absolute weight, you cannot cheat it. There's no way to cheat it. You can do bad form, but as long as you commit to maintaining good form, you cannot cheat the weight on that bar. And not only that, but with the exercise selection that I've picked for you, it becomes exceedingly difficult to cheat the movements because a lot of them rely on you bracing your torso or bracing your body in one way or another against something that cannot move. So for example, the strict curls that you'll see throughout the workout routines, you can't cheat those because your back is up against the wall. So when you increase the weight, that's the weight that you're going to lift and you're going to lift it correctly. You have no other option. So that's why it's my preferred method. I just prefer to ensure with 100% certainty that I am getting the intensity that I need to stimulate muscle growth. Now, the next component, the next fitness fundamental that you need to understand in terms of building muscle is progressive overload. This ties right back into what I just said about increasing the absolute weight of an exercise. You need to increase the intensity over time. Now, you're not necessarily increasing the relative intensity, you're increasing the absolute intensity. Because as you get stronger, you will be able to accommodate more weight. As your back gets bigger, you'll be able to do weighted pull-ups with more and more weight, and it won't be any harder for you than doing unweighted pull-ups used to be. But from an absolute standpoint, you are still moving more weight, and your muscles will have to adapt to that, provided that you're taking care of your nutritional needs and you're taking care of your body so that you don't have to take weeks at a time away from the gym. Your muscles are going to grow. Now, just like with intensity, increasing the weight is not the only way to progressively overload. It may be the most efficient, but it's not the only way. You can also increase the amount of volume that you do, particularly the amount of reps or the amount of sets. However, once you're able to do more than 15 reps of an exercise, at that point, you either need to increase the leverages. So in other words, you need to pick a harder variation of that same exercise, or you need to increase the time under tension, or both. Because once you start going over 15 reps per set, you are getting into endurance territory, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just not ideal for building big muscles. That's more for if you want to be toned and have that really, really lean and shredded physique, which is not mutually exclusive, by the way, with having big muscles. If you stay in that 6 to 15 rep range, you can have the big muscles and be lean. but you need to continue to increase the intensity. That's literally all progressive overload is, increasing the intensity over time. How often should you do this? You should do this every 1 to 3 weeks, depending on how long you've been in the gym for, and depending on which workout split you pick for yourself. For me personally, I'm at a point where I increase the weight every 3 weeks. I increase the weight every week, but for each individual body part, each individual muscle group that I work out, I increase the weight every 3 weeks. So I have a split of 3 different exercises, or 3 different workouts rather, that I do. 3 separate workouts. The first week, I increase the weight on the first workout. The second week, I increase the weight on the second workout. And the third week, I increase the weight on the third workout. And it doesn't interfere with one another because, again, I'm allowing my body adequate time to recover. So my splits are set up in such a way where you don't have to worry about progressive overload becoming overbearing. You can continue to progressively overload without it eating into your recovery. Keep progressively overloading, so in other words, keep increasing the intensity and keep doing the amount of volume that you need to do with the right exercises, and I can assure you with 150% certainty that your muscles will grow. So that was just one out of 191 exclusive videos in my coaching program. If you want to unlock the rest of those videos and attend weekly coaching sessions with yours truly, then be sure to click the link in the description so that you can get your dream body, get your dream girlfriend, and make freedom your lifestyle.